Record stop. Okay. Hi. Let's discuss the paper soon after reading it. And we selected a paper 2 hours ago and then started reading the paper. Then from now on, we are going to discuss the paper. Today, we have two people. First, Ryoichi, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, hi, I'm Ryoichi, a PhD student. Okay,
Thank you, Ryoichi. Me, Yota Kawashima. I'm a research assistant in Japan. Okay, and today we are going to discuss a paper titled Neural Event Segmentation of Continuous Experience in Human Infants um, by Tristan Yates et al., published in 2022 from PNAS. So first, I will give you a quick summary of this paper. Okay, so the title says this paper investigates the event segmentation in human infants. So we human, continuously receive inputs, sensory inputs from the external world, and then we have continuous experiences based on the sensory input. Then in order to interpret the experience, we automatically segment such experiences, continuous experiences, into meaningful events at the multiple time scales. So for example, like some event can be really short and then the others can be really long. And several studies suggest that infant can do this event segmentation as like adults, human adult. But the previous studies kind of assume that the event segmentation, the way how the infant segment event is the same as adults. And this is, I think, kind of a limitation by the previous paradigm where the participant infants were kind of imposed, forced to make event segmentation based on the stimuli determined by the stimuli or event boundaries determined by the adult experimenters. So there are no free, choice for infants. It might be there might be differences, or if there are differences between infants and adults, then this paradigm is not appropriate. So in this paper, they use the data-driven approach where they use the computational model to determine event boundaries or event segmentation by brain activity from infant. They use the fMRI data. And also in this paper, or the main aim of this paper is to compare the event segmentation, the way how the brain segment the events between adults and children, infants. In the previous studies, shows that in adult, the event segmentation, the time scale is shorter in the early visual area, and the time scale is longer in the higher area in the adults. So what this paper want to test is whether the infant brain has the same hierarchy like adult or not. Then they use computational data-driven approach to fMRI data where infants view the silent movie called Aeronaut, and then perform the data-driven event segmentation. Then what they found is that, first they replicate the results from adult for the data set, for the stimuli, the silent movie Aeronaut. Then they found that, or they could replicate the previous result. So they saw a hierarchy in the brain from adult regarding time scale. So the time scale is shorter in the early visual area and then longer in the higher visual area and related area in adult. On the other hand, in infant brain, there were no hierarchy. And in addition, the time scale tends to be longer than adults across the whole brain. So from here, what the authors conclude is that first they conclude that the infant's brain could segment the continuous experiences into discrete events based on their data-driven approach. And also they found that the adult's brain or not adult's brain, the infant brain has a coarse time scale than the adult brain. That's the second finding. And the last finding is that in infant brain, there was no hierarchy, but in adult, there was hierarchy. So that's the conclusion of this paper. That's just a quick summary of this paper from me. If you want to add any additional detail information, Ryoichi, can you please do that now?
Okay, yes, I agree with your summary. And yes, okay. I don't have any addition.
Okay, good. So from now, let's start discussions. Okay, so first, I did not mention or did not explain the interpretation of the result that was mentioned in this paper by the authors. So what they found is that infants did not have hierarchy like adults. Then they mentioned three possible explanations for that. The first is that physical, anatomical differences, developmental differences, in architectures. So as you know, infant's brain is not mature, and as you grow up, the structure change. And then that something or may relate it to the result, what they found in this paper. So basically, the infant received just information, the same amount of information as adults, but the way how they process is kind of different due to the difference in anatomical structure. That one possible explanation. And the other is that the structure, the way how they, the way how infant brain process the information is just the same as the adult brain regarding this time segmentation, not event segmentation, but the information, the sensory input the infant receives might different from adults, input, sensory input, because of some limitation like attention, something like that. That's the other explanation or interpretation of their results. Then the last interpretation can be just bias, model bias. And this is because that although they collected the data from infant in the same age, but there might be intersubject differences within the same age, because each individual infant, the speed of their development change. So even though they try to get the monotonous data, maybe the data is kind of vary quite a lot, and then that might result this unambiguous no hierarchy non-clear structure data non-structure results. That's the last interpretation regarding this hierarchy thing. And I have, this is just a follow-up of the, explanation or summary, brief summary of. But anyway, so I have actually one comment of this paper. So I think we read the paper about time perception and event segmentation in this our let's discuss journal club before. And then if I remember correctly, the more event segmentation, the longer you feel. Is it correct? I forgot which was which. I mean, if we have more event segmentation, then shorter time perception or longer per time perception. I think it was longer time perception, event segmentation. And the reason why I mentioned this is that, again, I want to talk about the time perception, the difference in time perception between infants and adults. When we talked about the other, another time or event segment study previously, I mentioned that, when I was a kid, I feel like the time flows really slow. But if when I grew up, like now, one day I feel really first than when I was in, let's say junior high school or primary kindergarten, So, and also, this study shows that, the time scale of event segmentation is overall longer in infant's brain than adult's brain. So maybe that might account the difference in time perception between infants and adults. So yeah, in that case, I think this result makes sense, no? Because this study shows that overall infant brain has long time segment, time scale, meaning that the number of time segments is less than the adult's brain.
Yes, I understand what you said now.
Yeah, and then you feel, longer.
I see. But in this study showed that the brain activity is different between infants and adults, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Time perception is also different between them.
They did not mention anything about that. So this is just my, comments or, my thought. Nothing to do with this, study. Yeah. So this paper is just, talking about whether we can see this structure regarding, event segment. Then they show, yes, difference between adults and, infant. They did not mention anything about time perception. I think maybe somewhere they mentioned about that, but I guess no.
I see. Yeah, but time perception is similar according to previous research, and I think this study also, but the brain activity or pattern, active pattern is different. I mean, more hierarchical one in adults, but more full brain and not hierarchical in infants, right?
I'm not sure about whether they mentioned about time perception itself
Mm,
in this, in even in the previous studies, or
mm,
by citing previous studies. What they say is that we want to focus on event segmentations, and then previous
mm,
study shows that infant can do,
mm,
or infant's brain automatically segment the continuous
mm,
experiences into discrete. But
mm,
that's basically based on the or kind of constraint
mm,
or
mm,
forced um, the way how adults segment the event, because the experimenter kind of create some stimuli and then set the boundary event
mm.
segment from the perspective of adults, and it can be different from the way how the infant you know
Yeah.
segment.
Mm,
And that's the reason why this paper, the authors want to use data-driven approach.
mm, mm, mm.
So yes, they mentioned about the previous, behavioral, you know, data regarding time
Mm.
segmentations. And also they mentioned about the previous study on EEG, I think,
Yeah.
but not about time perception, if I remember correctly.
Mm, I see. Yes, I agree with you and this study, but I'm wondering, or I, I'm thinking that what the how to say, infant age is more valid, is more large scale in this study, right? And from three 3.6 months or 3 months and to 12 months or 1 years old.
Hmm,
I think in this period, infant brain is developed, developed dramatically.
hmm,
So I think the developmental structure, brain structure or network will be changed. Will change.
hmm.
I think
Okay.
so.
Hmm. Yes. Okay. Okay. So the authors mentioned about that possibility
Mm,
in their paper. So the model just could not, captures, or because due to the nature of data set, as you mentioned, they the data, infant data just varied quite a lot. And that
mm,
result this, no hierarchy result. Yeah. And
mm,
you're a developmental psychologist, and you should know a lot more than I do about this development
mm. Yeah,
differences in brain structures. So maybe your insight might be,
mm. But yes, I can understand that the infant brain activity is less hierarchical one and the full brain. Not full brain, but the low 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 level layer is more important for infants. I understand and I think so.
hmm,
But this development, so normally from low level here, uh, lower order uh, activity from lower order to uh, full brain activity and hierarchical one, infant brain develop.
hmm,
So I can understand this result and what the author wants to say, but I don't know 1 month or 1 year old infant also the same pattern or mm, but yes, this is my uh, sus- sus- sustain. This is my wondering point.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe they did similar analysis for each, I mean, the month group,
Mm,
the age group
yeah.
in supplementary material somewhere. I don't know. Maybe not. No.
So we cannot judge this the large uh, variation of the data. I mean that the range of the plot is larger than adults. Yes, I understand. This is based on the infant noisy or aging noisy noise from age duration, age, noise from the large of age, or just normally the infant data noise. We cannot separate. We
Okay.
cannot like.
But I think they did some, analysis, I think. They, artificially input noise to the
Mm-hmm.
data. They still see that kind of, no hierarchy or hierarchy in
Mm-hmm.
adults or in infants. I don't know. Again, I don't, or I could not read the detail of that part. But I remember in the discussion part, they mentioned it some, simulation work.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand that your point, and also, the author mentioned about that possibility in the discussion. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe better to get the data or change the way how they group the
Mm-hmm.
participants.
Yes, I see.
But I also, or I kind of understand why they have to do this, because I imagine it's not easy to get the data from infant
Mm-hmm.
MRI.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in order to have, enough data, enough participant data
Mm-hmm.
to train their computational model,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they have to, include or
Yes,
group,
yes.
the different aged infant participant into
Mm-hmm.
one. But I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I agree. This work is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yes, I see. And also in this age range, I also interested in how to change is for me more interesting
Okay.
because in this uh, range, normally the number of synapses
Mm-hmm.
at the perceptual area uh, is increased to the 9 months and decrease.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the perception change in this age range dramatically.
Okay.
Um, on, view, at the view of the brain network or brain right synaptic one. So yes, the visual perception will be changeable.
Mm-hmm.
Also, but the visual was the low layer. Each modality is changeable, but the time perception will not change. I I I can't believe it.
Okay. So I think you raise a really interesting point that so yes, they in this study they compare adult versus infant, but you mentioned the critical period, right? So
Yeah.
at some point the pruning start, right? The synaptic pruning start, and then that might change the structure of brain quite a lot. So if we can see the developmental difference between or within infant group, may be separate. So the critical period is 9 months after birth.
Right from the perceptual area synapses.
Okay.
Vision, yes.
Okay, then maybe group into older than 9 months versus younger than 9 months, and then see how we will see the how the brain change. And I don't know, from that perspective, my intuition expectation is that all the brain from in the older than 9 months might have the similar the structure as the adult.
Yeah, but normally, yes. Yeah, but 9 months and degrees, and I think from 6 years or 6 years old, it's maybe similar to adult brain architecture of the perception of vision.
Okay, then maybe, yeah. But the prediction is that done. But I don't know. From this data, we can't say. But if the structure, there are no structure in the infant brain, and then we have structure in adult brain, then the expectation is that the first no hierarchy, but as the time goes, then the hierarchy emerge. And then at the age of 6 years, we will have the almost complete version of hierarchy like adult. That is kind of your expectation there.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, so maybe we can, or I mean, the author might do something similar. You're collecting the new data from different age group and see how this structure change across the development.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And also, as far as I know, for infants, process of perception is different from adults. I mean, so for in infants, the important area is like lower order, and there is one hypothesis that infant perception process is infant network is between the perceptual area. I mean, vision and tactile or audio or something is tied and have a network at the lower order hierarchical one. Normally, adult is V1, V2, blah, 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 higher order vision and how to say, integrated area. And so this, we have a hierarchy, but infant, not the most important area is the lower area, and they are have networks between the vision and tactile and audio or something. So, sorry. So so I can easily to understand this result because lower order area is important for infants more than the higher order hierarchical one. And with age, the network will be changing from lower order network, to hierarchical one and integrated area and hierarchical brain activity.
Did they mention about the importance of brain area across different age group? I don't know.
Hmm? So you mean, sorry, what do you mean?
So so first I understand what you say in a sense that the kid's brain, the
Mm,
frontal area is not developed or matured
mm,
yet.
mm,
So they process the sensory information using or other information as well using the occipital sensory area, lower
yeah.
area.
Mm,
And then you mentioned that this area will be important in kids, infant,
mm,
than the adult.
mm.
That what you said, right?
Yeah, important and network net prevent visual lower order visual area is networked with the other modalities area.
Hmm.
So because they have a lot of synapses or networks.
Okay. So you're saying that there are kind of no distinction across modality in a sense
Yes,
because of
yes, 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 yes. That's
really
right.
many connections.
Yes.
So that might be the reason why this paper show the result uh homogeneous, you know monotonous,
Yeah.
no hierarchy result in infant. But in
Mm,
adult, we have some, or the brain have kind of module structure.
yes, yes, yes,
And then that might relate it to this, hierarchical.
yes.
Okay, yeah, then, yeah, maybe.
That's one postulate, hypothesis.
Hmm. So if that is true, then we should be able to see the same result for any modality for infant
Mm-hmm.
and
Interesting.
also adults. So maybe this, or maybe not maybe, but this study is about vision, no auditory input, and
Mm-hmm.
then in within visual area they saw hierarchy. But if we input or present auditory stimulus alone, then first the adult brain should have similar hierarchy. I'm not sure about this part, but
Mm,
if the adult brain has the same or similar hierarchical structure regarding time scale within an auditory area, but the maybe adults, no, the infant brain has some
mm-hmm.
monotonous, just no hierarchy, and might be, the
Mm-hmm.
even segmentation might occur even in visual area. I don't know. Mm,
Yeah, but I also think that event limit is, sorry, how to say, uh, segmentation is not only visual area,
mm,
but also the other area. So this is a multi-modal
yeah,
perception. Mm. So I think it is not, this result is different from the visual area only data.
yeah,
Mm. Yes, yes. So also interesting
mm,
for me,
yeah,
this study.
mm, 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 mm. Yeah. They mentioned about the activity in other
Mm.
area, not the visual area
Mm-hmm.
alone. Preacuneus,
Yeah.
preacuneus, I think. Yeah, and okay.
Mm.
You know, again, another paper we read, the paper we read previously, it was about, I think, the activity in hippocampus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure whether this, study shows any, activity in hippocampus area, or maybe not, because event
Mm.
segmentation is related to some context or scene dependent, and then that scene, information is somehow related to activity in hippocampus. I don't know. I forgot the detail about the paper. The we read. I think it was already few months ago, or maybe 1 year
Yeah.
or something. So I can't remember. I think it was 1 year ago. So I
Yeah.
don't remember because now it's October, right?
Yes, yes. I
And
see.
then we read that paper before I submitted an application where I talked about that time scale of brain and
Mm-hmm.
time perception and integrated information theory.
Yeah,
So
I see,
yeah,
I see.
it's already 1 year ago. So yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Anyway, so we've already discussed the paper, or already 35 minutes past
Mm.
already. And yeah, if you do not have anything to say, maybe we can wrap up discussion here. Yoichi,
Okay.
do you have anything to say?
No.
Okay, then let's finish here then. See you next week. Bye bye.
See you.